Hi. Today I want to talk to you about how failure can actually be a path to success. Okay, so you might have to bear with me on this one because kind of one is totally an esoteric example. Um, so if you've been watching my channel for a while now, you know already that I believe in magic. I'm just saying that just to preface the segue into having a good mood, which is good because good for my mood, maybe not good for keeping on track with the video. We'll see how it goes. Um, Trying to think of a general way to explain this before I use my specific example. So maybe it'd be easier in the opposite order, actually. So my specific example is well, in my magic, I tried to use a lot of different spells that would help me not precognitively know things about the future, but kind of plan ahead for the future or try to kind of string events together so that the future would be, I don't know, more efficient based on past events. It's kind of tricky, and that's why I fail at it a lot of times. So you can't actually see the future. If anybody tells you they can see the future, you got to be aware that as soon as you see the future, you can change it, and that it's impossible to see the future with certainty because it doesn't exist yet. And it's not until we get there that it begins to happen. Right? The only way we can know what's going to happen next with certainty is if we go backwards in time to where we already have forward knowledge of the events that are going to occur. Or, of course, if we're making the future events happen, and we know for a fact what's going to happen because we're causing it, right? Or we're privy to some information about what someone else is causing, right? But even then, that's not certainty because something can stop you from causing it. Now, let's see. So my example was actually that I made a spell. There's a few previous versions before this, but they were much less specific and less sophisticated. So the first one that actually kind of made sense was called the Prophet Guide. Now the Prophet Guide spell you can cast just by saying the words Prophet Guide. That's why I designed it that way. Um, but what that spell does is it carries you from the point you're at now, not physically or even mentally, really. It instructs you, is what it does. Instructs you in the most appropriate way of how to move from the present moment to the next activity or the next event. Mm-hmm. Or it will even suggest the most appropriate next event. It can also give you other information on how past events relate to necessary, possible, or appropriate future events. Um, Even though they're not necessarily guaranteed to happen, it basically just guides you with the prophecy, which is why it's called the Prophet Guide. Guides you to what should the next thing you do be. Okay, it's a pretty involved spell, as you can imagine, and it does base where it's taking you off of where you've been. So that spell proved to be problematic for a number of reasons. One, it was so intelligent and knowledgeable it eventually developed a will of its own and started to turn on me. And two, it leads to everything to a final conclusion. So its ultimate goal is to end things, particularly to end everything. So it actually just wants to conclude the storyline of real life. So that became highly, highly problematic for both of those reasons. And I didn't know what else to do for quite a while, so I kept trying to use that spell until it became so unruly that it was completely useless. At first, it was great. The first thing that spell ever told me to do was go to the store and buy wine. And I had down to 3 pennies away, 3 cents away from the exact amount I needed to buy that wine. and it was the cheapest wine they had. It was the cheapest wine I ever bought, and it was actually really good. It's a Concord wine called Manischewitz or Manischewitz or something like that. It's a Jewish wine, but it's not a ceremonial Passover wine. It's just for enjoying. It's kosher, I think, but it doesn't bother me, even though I'm not Jewish. Whatever. Anyway, that it started off great, ended up disastrous. The spell would always lead me to the wrong place after it went sour. Even before that, I let the spell keep misleading me a bunch of times, because it would sometimes tell me accurate information and other times not. To the point that it was questionable whether it was ever actually helping me in the first place. But now I got this new spell. Much simpler. Now, one of the benefits of the Prophet Guide was if I asked it a question, it would actually talk to me in English if I needed it to. That was pretty cool. But this spell doesn't. But because I'm not just going by its word and what it's telling me, I have to psychically interact with it and kind of bend it to my will so it gives me the answer I'm looking for. This other spell works way better. Hence how failure led to success. So many failed attempts at making something that could give me an idea of what to do next properly. I finally came up with a spell that gives me all the information I need to plot my next move. It's a very simple word. Should work in any language, but in English, it's analysis. Now, unlike the Prophet Guide, analysis is not just a spell you just activate and then talk to. No. You have to know what you're doing. This is for more advanced, maybe not advanced, but at least experienced spellcasters. So you can cast analysis, and that will create an analysis. It will create a system of analyzing information. And what I do with that analysis spell is I grasp it with my magical energy, I guess, and I manipulate it to analyze whatever I want, and I use it in a similar fashion to the Prophet Guide and the other previous spells I used, and it's just more efficient. I have more control over it. It's more easy to use. It's more direct. It's more analytical, and instead of just telling me what I should do and I'm supposed to just go with it, it actually just gives me all the information, and then I can use that information however I want, and I can use it to decide what I should do and why. So the Prophet Guide was pretty helpful sometimes, but I consider it a huge failure. But if it hadn't been at least kind of a little bit successful, and I hadn't have kept using it even though it had failed, and I hadn't have failed in the first place by making it and then having it go to crap, I never would have got to the point where I would have developed the analysis spell. So, maybe what I should have said at the beginning of the video is that, and I think this is what I said, no, it's not something like that. What I should have said is not necessarily that failure is a path to success, but maybe a stepping stone to success. What's the difference, though, right? A path, a stepping stone. You walk on them both, but they take you somewhere, right? So they say it's not about the journey, it's about the... oh, no, scratch that. Remember, they say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Bullshit. It's about both. But you wouldn't even go on the journey if you didn't have a destination. Unless you were just wandering. But that's not really a journey, that's more wandering. I suppose it's kind of journey, but... whatever. Okay, anything else I need to touch on before I'm done? Let's see. Success? Oh, maybe I forgot. I did the first thing second, so I need to do the second thing now. General example? I don't know if we need a general example now. I mean, I guess losing a fight a bunch of times could be a path to winning a fight a bunch of times, right? Losing at bingo could tell you that you need to pick a better bingo card. You might do trial and error until you find the one that always wins. Richard Morgan. And, well, I think that's about it. I think I pretty much covered it. Yeah. A moral of the story. Don't get discouraged just because you keep screwing up over and over again. Because that screwing up you're doing might actually be, let's just say, nature's way of training you to do it right someday.